and I want to welcome you to this YOL series, Work From Home, the Wellbeing Series. And today's topic is about staying connected. I'm going to share my screen with you so that I can share a few pieces of information that I wanted to be certain to capture. And so what I'm going to do is share my screen and we will take it from there. But this is going to be interactive, so I hope that you'll ask questions along the way and we make this into a dialogue. So let me share my screen first thing. And just let me confirm that I can still can you hear me? Okay, good. All right. Okay, good. So let me move that over. And so we're going to talk about staying connected. Working from home is a new thing for so many people. And so I wanted to chat just a little bit about what the elements of staying connected are. And my background, a little bit about me. I am one of the advisors to YOL, and so it's an organization that I hold dear and think is absolutely amazing. So delighted to be part of the series. My background is in leadership development, learning and development, and diversity. And I have had a company called around intentional connections called Quotient, your networking quotient. But I am not a person who likes networking. So I preface.
Marilyn, I think your sound has, if you can hear me.
Oh, my internet connection is spotty. So I may freeze up at times. And if that happens, it'll unfreeze fairly quickly, but I just wanted to let you know that may happen. It's one of the pieces of working from home and connecting with people that I deal with on a regular basis because I live in Sebastopol, so it's rural and we have connectivity, but it comes and goes at times. So if I freeze up or you can't hear me for a moment, just text me in the chat window and we'll see if it can be better. If not, I will dial in from my landline. So just to get back to this. So having strong connections is really about strengthening your well-being. A 50% increase in longevity when you are connected and feel that you have this sense of connection with people. Your immune system is boosted. You can recover faster, and people who are more connected have less anxiety, less depression, higher self-esteem, greater empathy for others, typically are more trusting and cooperative. And we know that being socially connected generates this positive feedback loop. And in fact, there's been some conversation I've been having with some colleagues about this, that we don't like the word social distancing. We'd really prefer it to be called physical distancing, because we don't have to social distance. We just have to physical distance from one another. So I just want to keep track of letting people into the session. So I apologize for my distraction here. So with that, what we want to focus on are ways to stay connected. So how can we do that? And one of the ways is what we're doing right here, which is communicating face to face. One of the things I do when I talk about how to remove bias is I do a demonstration on how our visual connections are so much more powerful than our auditory connections. And so if you add at work in particular, but with anyone, with a friend or a family member or anybody, when we don't have those visual cues to assist us, we're not getting the full messages. And so what we really want to do is leverage all these wonderful new tools that are available to us, like what we're using here today, which is Zoom, what so many others like WebEx, FaceTime, WhatsApp. The main thing to tell people, and of course I'm doing some multitasking right now as I accept people into our room on Zoom. But the thing is that it's very tempting when you're on a session like this, or when you're on a conference call with video, or when you're meeting with people, to say, well, I can listen and do other things at the same listening. You will get so much more out of it than the people who are multitasking, doing a couple of emails at the same time. And then for work situations, and actually even for social gatherings that we'll talk more about, make sure that you start with something that forms an emotional connection, because we are not in business as usual scenario right now. And so when we start meetings with here's the agenda and jump right in, we're missing the opportunity to connect as human beings. And because we're not next to each other, because we are distancing, we need those extra efforts at connecting human to human. And so start by asking a question, something that might connect people, like, has anybody read a good book recently? Or has anybody seen a video that's uplifting and willing to share the link to the video? I just shared a video of a nonprofit where the kids did a song together that my niece happens to work for the nonprofit. Things like that, that just connect us. But start with one of those. It doesn't have to be, how is your health? Some people are overloaded on COVID discussions, and so they can't take yet another one. So ask a question that connects people, that's emotional connection, but doesn't have to be around the virus, around, are you healthy? Is your family healthy? If you haven't spoken to the person in a long time, then that might be appropriate. But if you're meeting on a regular basis, then start with something else. And then we need positive reinforcements, because there is the new doing to bring joy into your day. My internet connection. Am I back? Okay, good. So start with those kinds of questions that I mentioned, and then end your meetings asking, is there anything I can do to be of help? This is a tool that a friend of mine uses, has nothing to do with times of COVID. She's just does this as a regular practice. And this is a person who has built up an amazing network of connections. She ends every conversation, is there anything I can do for you, or anything I can do to be of help? This is not limited to personal relationships. This is work relationships and personal relationships. But it just lets people know I'm here and I'm willing to be of help, work-wise, community-wise, relationship-wise. And then block time on your calendars to make those connections. Because if we don't do that, then our day runs away with us. And it just becomes, okay, now it's Friday. Now, it's the next week. Any questions so far from anyone? Remember to unmute if you want to ask a question. Okay, so other things that I've been doing recently, and I'm thought of as an Uber connector in Silicon Valley, is I've been starting to share resources with colleagues and and share those. Share things that people who are working parents and need to occupy their kids are doing that works, because those are people who are impacted greatly. These are adults who have a job, a day job like you and me, and also have a job now as a teacher, a homeschool teacher, also have a job now as a referee and Judge Judy, all wrapped into one during their day. So if you have any hints of what's working with your kids, or your friends have tips, put that on a list and just say, here's 3 links: virtual tour of the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and my kids loved it, whatever it is. Share those resources with other people. I can't tell you how appreciative folks are when they get those. The other group that's greatly impacted is people who live alone. So a person who lives alone recently said to me, the thought of not having human contact for another month is really frightening to me. And I think that we have to pay attention to those in our network, those people we work now, they don't get to connect on a human level with other people other than our virtual things that we're doing. Also, I recently put together actually 7 pages of local resources for delivery, meals, food, medicines, all those kinds of things. And I did it for one of the local nonprofits up here in Sonoma County. But all of us can do that so that everybody doesn't have to, sure, we're all capable and we can all go on Google and we can all start looking up what pharmacies deliver, who has a drive-through, where are their senior hours for people that your neighbors who are older. But if you've done the research, or you're willing to do that research, or you have a teenager or a college student who's home and is willing to put in some time, give them this as a project. And I just went online and started looking up the resources and then compiled it into a nice, neat list. And then I started sharing it with anyone I knew, sharing it with health clinics. And I did it for the nonprofit, and it's now on their website, but I also started sharing it. And people were like, oh my God, thank you so much. I don't have to now look up all these phone numbers and find out who delivers organic meals, who delivers, what I want already cooked or in a box that I have to cook. So all that stuff. Same thing with exercise and meditation, museums, musical stuff, virtual places to visit. I just found a concert online series because my husband's a musician. So I thought he would find that of interest, ways to play music online and still have concerts. books, movies, and shows that you enjoy. I'm part of a small group of women. We call it a wine group. I live in Sonoma County again. So we have a wine women's group, and we all started sharing books, movies, TV shows, blogs, things that we follow that we thought the others might find of interest. One woman just started writing them, typing them all up. Now we've shared them. I've shared them with tons of other people who found them extremely helpful. So those things, but you can share these things with colleagues who you normally don't cross those lines with, except nowadays we need to, because we're not having those conversations in the office. Same thing with favorite recipes. And of course, the series like you're on now, Yoel's free offerings are a great thing to share with friends and colleagues and family members, frankly, to say, hey, I listened to this great webinar. I think you might enjoy it. So stuff like that, these are all great things that we can do to share with friends. And you can hear me still, correct? Yes? I know I went unstable again for a moment. I'm back, I think, right? Am I back? Yes, just nod your head, somebody who's on the video. Okay, good, thank you. So there are new social mechanisms that replace getting together with people in the break room. I know when I worked in the office, I was 11 years at Cisco. I looked forward to seeing people on Monday because we would share what we did over the weekend. We would share, you know, stories of where we went on a new hike or things that we enjoyed. But we need to replace those break room conversations. We need to replace who we have lunch with on a regular basis, those afternoon chats, happy hours, weekend get-togethers. So one of the things that I think we can all do is say, here's an open connection hour on my calendar. Every morning between 9 and 9:30, or every afternoon, I have a low energy time between 3 and 3:30. It's not my deep thinking time. So I leave that as you want to connect with me. I have Calendly, which is another good tool to say you can book time with me. But I just let people know at 3 o'clock is a good time to ping me with any questions. If you have a chat function that you use or just a text function with other people, just know that 3 o'clock is a great time. I'm always available at 3, or I'm typically available at New York. And of course, for me, it was not the time of a coffee break, but East Coast, West Coast, it worked out okay. So have a virtual coffee break and invite people. 2, 3 people say, we're going to get together for a virtual coffee break. Just 15 minutes, time to catch up. Same thing, enjoy a virtual potluck. Bring your own food. Nobody gets to worry about what anybody else is doing. We don't have to smell the food that other people are eating. We can enjoy it. People can say, oh, wow, what are you having? I'd like to find out that recipe. But just ways to have lunch with others when we are not in the same room. Same thing, here's some other ideas, a book club, a bake-off, some fun team building activities like a bake-off or a cook-off that you can do. You know, everybody makes something from their native culture and share why it's important to you. We're not tasting it, but we can understand a little more about one another. We can have online wine clubs or something called onnomi. And I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's the Japanese term for drinks together online. And I just love that idea. And I've done several of them on nomis, where a bunch of us get together, have our own drink of choice. whatever it is, wine or cocktail or water, whatever you choose. And we have an Anami, which is a group virtual drink together. And again, we each share what we're drinking. We have one question that we all answer, and it might, and again, it's not about the virus, but it might just be something, what's one fun thing you've done over the last week? And then we move on, and it's just a connection. From one another, we can still play a game of trivia with a bunch of people, or play a game of Jeopardy and let people chime in and say, oh, I've got the answer. And so there's that notion of competitive spirit. And you can even have breakout rooms and two people competing, or families competing, and get people's families and significant others involved if you want to. And then cocktails after work, with or without karaoke. I've heard some karaoke that I would, again, my husband's a musician. He pays me not to sing. So, enough said about my singing talents. And then map out who you want to connect with. So I think I'm back. Map out, typically it only goes out for a second, map out who you want to connect with to widen your circle. This is an opportunity to widen our circles. So one of the things that's different, and I recently was talking about this with a friend of mine, is that we've now leveled the playing field. There are people that I have not seen in 5 or 6 years that I'm now getting together with on a regular basis, because they live too far away for me to see them. And I found that I was spending my time with people who were in close proximity. Well, now it doesn't matter where you live. You could be next door, or 2 miles away, or you could be 7,000 miles away. We're not going to be together. So it's a great time for us to step back and say, who do we want to socialize with? Who do we want to connect with for our careers, now that distance isn't a factor? And so what I would ask each of you to do is just to take out a piece of paper and a pen or pencil, whatever, and write down the 10 people who you would like to connect with or reconnect with. And they could be people, and the first category are people who I would put into what I call your kitchen cabinet. They're not going to gather in your kitchen right now, but they're your personal board of directors. They're people who are close to you, who might give you career advice, might give you personal advice, might be those closest to you. So who are the people that you would say are in that group that you might not have had time for recently? And write those names down, and then schedule time to be with them. So make that list of 10 people. Members who you haven't seen in a while, but you think it would be good to reach out and reconnect with. And then the same thing, 10 people who would be helpful for career growth. It could be someone who was a manager or a peer, mentor or a sponsor, or someone who helped you in your career, but you changed companies, they changed companies, you've lost touch with them. Put them on your list for career growth. People who could take your career to the next level. This is something I do in a workshop I call Building Intentional Connections. And it's about being a little more intentional about people who can help us achieve our career goals. So at some point you want to look at your connections in relation to your career. So who are the 10 family members? Who are the 10 connections that would be your personal board of directors or your friends? And who are the top 10 people in your career growth list? So now you've got lists, 3 separate lists, and you've also got an additional group, which would be community support, outreach to those in need. Maybe it's an elderly neighbor. Maybe it's a nonprofit that you've been meaning to volunteer for. Well, you're not going to go there, but maybe there's another way you can help. Just like I compiled that list, I contacted this nonprofit and said, I can't come volunteer in your kitchen, but I know you're serving people who are shut in food. So what can I do to help? And they gave me a task, and I spent an hour or 2 putting that list together. So make your lists and think about how you can take that time in your calendar to start making these connections with these people. I did exactly this. I'm reconnecting with a group of about between 8 and 12 that I worked with. They were my team when I worked at Cisco, which was back in 2011, and from 2000 till 2000. A Zoom call with about 12 of them this week on Friday afternoon, because I figure that's a downtime for work. They've all scattered. This is now since 2011, obviously 9 years ago. Some are still at Cisco, some are in different locations. I've gotten notes from each one of them pretty much. Almost, well, at least 7 of them have already responded saying, I can't believe how wonderful this is. It's so nice to hear from you. I'm so excited about seeing your face and seeing everyone else's face. We try and get together periodically around the holidays, but it's been a few years. So just from one person on my list, that action came out of that one person on my list. And I said, well, let me get the whole group together. And who knows who might need some support? Who knows what business result can happen from this? And who knows where one person can reconnect with another and be helpful? So each of these lists are ways that you can reconnect with a lot of people. That will be good for your career, good for your social sphere, and good for your mental health. And so I really want to make sure that we talk just a moment about this notion of connecting has to be a win-win, because it's not just you reaching out to others so that you feel connected. It's also contributing to other people. And if you do it for no other reason, think about how hearing from you might make someone's day. And I'm not just talking about friends or relatives or someone or a neighbor who you think of as someone who's shut in, because right now we're all shut in. I'm also talking about colleagues. I'm talking about that colleague that you haven't talked to in a long time, but you just want to ping them and say, just checking in to see how your day is going. If you'd like to catch up for 15 minutes, we can schedule a video conference, or just let me know how you're doing. Nothing about the virus. Again, just want to know how you're doing. What you see here, one of these photos, the one in the middle, is actually a Zoom birthday party that I did. But it can be it can be one-on-one, it can be groups. I've had groups of 25, I've had one-on-ones. And it's amazing to me how these reconnections with people I haven't talked to in a while have spurred new business opportunities, new connections to other people, because they immediately are saying, well, I think you ought to meet so-and-so, or I say to them, you ought to meet another person, and the connections just keep building. And so the idea is that what you see here in the background is a connection map. Connection maps, when I looked at it again, I thought, you know what, it looks very much like a net, because our connections are our safety net. And they really, really are. They are what keeps us supported when we need support. And even when we don't, that connection is a way to support others and just keep everything together. And so there's a lovely quote I saw recently from Michelle Obama, that we shouldn't view our challenges as a disadvantage, but understand that our experience facing and overcoming adversity is one of our biggest advantages. And I have found, as much as I am concerned about what's going on, and I would love for this pandemic to be over, and like to, we have us to have learned the lessons we needed to have learned and go back to being in a more business as usual fashion. But I also want to use this time to step back and say, what can we learn? Who can we reconnect with that we've been neglecting because we've been so busy in the day-to-day? Who can we where there's yet another, whoops, but before I lose my connection again, I want to make sure that I remind you that tomorrow, sometimes for the first time, sometimes it's the way of our normal way of working. So I'd like to open it up for questions, comments, thoughts. You've all put yourself on mute. I have not muted anyone, so feel free to jump in. Anyone?
Sure, I will.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, my name's Lily. I'm sorry that I was a little bit late to the call. I was on with a life coaching client, which is so awesome that we can continue to do that online. So that's been, you know, one of the okay things that's happening. I live in Hinckley, Illinois, which is an hour west of Chicago. So it's cold and I can't go outside. But Noelle Cordeau is who recommended this. She runs Journey Life Coaching, and she and John Kim, which is where I got my training. And she connected us with this link as you're talking, Marilyn, about sharing resources. And I'm so thankful I could cry. This was beautiful. It was, everything you said was so relevant and pertinent and helpful. And I didn't know I was gonna cry, but I'm really grateful. And thank you so much.
You're more than welcome, and thank you so much for sharing. This is our goal, is to reconnect with people on that human level. And my heart goes out to everyone dealing with all the challenges that we're dealing with today, and still moving one foot in front of the other. So thank you so much for sharing your truth. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Anyone else? Well, I don't want to keep people longer than is needed. I know that David, you're one of the participants. I want to again thank everyone for joining today. And every day, Yoel will be offering a webinar on another topic at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern, or whatever your time zone is accordingly in between. And again, tomorrow is Jason Gant. I just want to thank you, David, and Yoel, for doing this community work and really just helping share with the larger community resources that all of us need right now. We all get emotional about what's going on in our world, and being there for each other is making a difference. I hope that we will come together and support each other through this and stay connected and supportive when this is over. Thank you all. Thank you all.